Tampa. How are you doing today, Wally?
Good to meet you, Justin.
Good to meet you. Wally's got an interesting story to tell us, but before we talk about your story, tell us a little bit about how you got started with cop watching and how you got involved.
Basically, dealing with the officers quite a few years back was my first experience where I called them for assistance. The situation was turned around on me to where I became the aggressor, supposedly, and the other person was. And I had to get my camera to get them back down. And once I got my camera, I saw then they would back off and stop doing what they were doing, and they did. So, and that was the first time. The other times is dealing with watching people online like Jeff Gray, Michael Burns, a few others, and watching what they were doing and realizing that the situation we're in today is totally different from when I was a young person. There's a lot, as younger people, people my age, when we were younger, we should have been doing a lot more activism too, which happened with Kent State. I was in that age group and stuff like that, and people got killed, and they pretty much used rule of force or rule of law to make us do what they wanted to. And now more people are waking up. I think as the groups get bigger, more orientated towards trying to find justice, that is growing into a movement that can go ahead and survive now. Hopefully, there aren't going to be too many more deaths happening because of it. Every time we turn around, someone's being killed by an officer when the person's unarmed. How do you justify murder when someone's unarmed? There's too many ways you can shoot somebody in the leg and take them down, tase them and take them down, not tase them, take them down, club their face in and beat them so many times they die for them trauma, like we know a certain person had happened out west with. So
it's not as much protecting and serving as much now, is it? It seems like it's more of a intimidation and force. I mean, why is that?
Action of force to rule is what I'm seeing. That's the only thing I can see. They have been put in a position. A lot more dealing with police. Some police and sheriff's departments are intertwined very heavily, but I found that a lot of police forces have become a political arm of the city's mayor and their politicians, to a degree that they're getting away. Politicians are getting away a lot more because they got the cops doing their bidding, and that's where I think it's coming from.
You also are familiar with the DUI checkpoints, and you participate in viewing them, I guess is what you would call it. Explain why exactly you attend DUI checkpoints.
The way I understand the law, the Supreme Court has ruled on multiple occasions that DUI checkpoints are legal because they have an express. They save lives to a better degree than people driving drunk and being allowed to go free, according to the Supreme Court. But the checkpoints they're doing now aren't constitutional checkpoints. They do DUI check your papers checkpoints, where they check your car, they check you for your driver's license. They sometimes even use drug dogs to search your car while you're there. It's not what the Supreme Court has authorized. And now they found that saturation patrols, it's already been proven, saturation patrols catch more drunks than the DUI checkpoints do, which I'm not against DUI checkpoints. I am against DUI check your paper checkpoints is what they've become. They call them comprehensive roadside vehicle safety checkpoints. And that's where the problem lies now with me, that it's an invasion of the Fourth Amendment, that if we have our rights, we have to stand up for them. If we don't stand up for them, we're not going to have them, because everything is pushing to absolve the Bill of Rights, the Constitution itself and the Bill of Rights. My First Amendment was interrupted, was actually violated by 2 counts. My freedom of speech, which I do these videos for a protest measure. I put them online, and I write stories about it online, or give brief comments and get comments from people back in a form of protest. The other way was that my right to be oppressed, to collect information, newsworthy information, and disseminate it to people, to citizens, to have at their leisure with the internet. You can do it anytime you want. It's not like newspapers came every morning. Well, that was denied too by the police when they arrested me. So But back to your question dealing with checkpoints is these checkpoints they're doing, as far as I'm concerned, aren't constitutional. They haven't been rule constitutional. They're blurring the lines between a check your papers border crossing checkpoint and an actual DUI checkpoint. And they're trying to make it in one where they'll just be stopping you whenever they want on the side of the road saying, hey, what's going on here? And give me your papers, you know. Yep. Which is constitutionally protected right now, but like I said earlier, the Supreme Court just ruled that if the officer makes a mistake and violates your Fourth Amendment right, if he claims ignorance that he didn't know the law, well, then it's going to be okay. The law will stand, you know, the judgment will stand. His ticket will stand, whatever.
So he can claim ignorance, really, in any case, if he feels it's necessary.
In any case now, since the Supreme Court has ruled, that's a minor intrusion into our Fourth Amendment rights because the officer can say he was ignorant of the law.
So your goal, it doesn't seem like your goal here is to give them problems, and you don't have a problem with catching drunk drivers. It just seems like your concern is about violating our rights in the process. Is that about?
That's what I've caught. Every checkpoint I've been to, I've caught this. They do it in one form or the other. That night that I was arrested, they actually did it twice. I didn't catch that video because I was on my way to jail, but my friend did, and they stopped a semi-truck in the road. Well, as I understand it, the Hillsborough County, or dealing with the state, has adopted the 3-minute rule. If you're stopped in traffic more than 3 minutes on a checkpoint in the roadway, they'll open the checkpoint lanes and just pass everybody through to clear it out. But that night they stopped a semi, had him held there questioning in the road, blocking the 2 people behind him up. Well, when the semi was released, the 2 people went in to do their part in the checkpoint that they chose,
right.
And before the last person got out, the 3 minutes was up. So they actually violated state law on that too.
Do you find these to be very effective? I mean, aside from violating our rights to do so, which is a major problem, I mean, are we catching drunk drivers very effectively with these checkpoints?
Some areas, when they run a checkpoint, say from 10 to 2 a.m., yes, they catch some drunks. But what Hillsborough County has been doing has been from 10 to noon to midnight. And the one I was at, they caught 0 drunks. I didn't see what happened this last one, but I do know that they do saturation patrols after the checkpoints, and they boost the arrest numbers for the evening by doing the saturation patrols.
And they're including those in the checkpoint
including
numbers?
Those in checkpoints.
Okay.
Because according to the state of Florida FY14, Hillsborough County got over $500,000 last year to do checkpoints, DUI checkpoints. Mm-hmm. So if they're not getting DUI offenders, how can they get the money from the state? So they do it just to have this thing to check your papers, to check for whoever's going on through the area, and it's not about DUI. And then afterwards they do the DUI and catch them and make their checkpoints look good.
Yeah, so it sounds good on paper, and I mean, who can argue with trying to curb drunk driving? I mean, people think that you're an evil person if you're against these checkpoints, but I think it's a common misconception that we're out to get the police. I mean, we just want them to do their job and protect, you know, our rights under the Constitution, you know, their oath that they swore to uphold.
Honor their oath. Yes, uphold their oath.
What happened that night, the particular instance where they arrested you and you were obstructing, I think is what you were charged with?
Obstruction and resisting without violence.
Explain
yes.
what you were doing and what happened that night.
That night I got there early and I went onto the sidewalk, and an officer came out and approached me, actually a corporal of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, and told me I would have to leave the sidewalk because they were closing the sidewalk. I argued that he couldn't do that.
Public space.
Public space, yeah. He argued that he'd been to the police academy and that the sidewalk is actually a part of the road, and that he had a checkpoint plan that said the sidewalk would be closed, so it's all set up, it would be closed, and it'd be illegal to throw me off the sidewalk. When in fact I got the checkpoint operations plan afterwards, and there's nothing in the diagram or the checkpoint saying that sidewalk was to be closed. He did also inform me at the time that he was expecting us to come, since he knew we would come to these checkpoints, and he'd set up an area where we could video from. Essentially set up a First Amendment protection zone where we were allowed to use it to video, which unfortunately was all the way down the road at the end of the checkpoint area, looking back into the oncoming car lights, back into their flood lamps, and other people's car lights coming out. Well, if you've ever shot video, you know lights mess up video. Even the focus will go in and out with some lights. So I told him that wasn't acceptable. And he said, well, this is where I could stand. He didn't say I had to stay there. He never commanded me to stay there. I said, I'm going to the median, and you can't stop me. His last words to me was, well, be careful, don't get hit. Be careful. He actually said, be careful, don't get hit. So I went to the median.
So it sounds like he was okay with it at that point?
At that point, I had no problems, apparently, because he didn't say, no, you can't go. You have to stay here. So I went down the median, walked down towards where the intake of the checkpoint was happening, which is outside of the checkpoint zone, because they had a car there blocking the highway, which is supposed to be a chase car, which if you check the diagram, was supposed to be back up here. But where I stopped at, that turn lane was blocked off, so people couldn't get into the turn, and they had the other lanes closed, 2 lanes closed down, and they were only passing cars through the 3rd outside lane. So I'm there, and I guess I was there about 13 minutes or so, 15 minutes maybe, and the 2 deputies, after I checked watching count cars, pulled 2 cars through, and the 3rd car, they were doing 3 cars at a time. What is the checkpoint? It's a shoot style. They'll pull off 3 or 5 cars. This night it was 3 cars. They'll put them in. The officers will go through. They'll check your papers, please, and then they'll release them and open the checkpoint shoot area again, and then they'll stop traffic and send 3 more in. Well, they pulled in 2 cars, and the 3rd car, the officer was waving, but then he stopped waving it in and passed the car. Then he pulled the car behind it and put it in, as my video shows. So at that time, they violated constitutionality of the checkpoint, in my opinion. Now, like I said, since the Supreme Court's changed the law, were your 4th Amendment rights protected or not? I don't know for sure on this now. But at the time, they were. You weren't allowed to do that. You had to pull in 3 cars, then start passing cars, which is what they set up to do. So when he did that, at that very moment, they sent that 3rd car in and passed the actual 3rd car. The corporal came across the street, talked to his deputy. I heard him tell his deputy, you see that guy behind you? As he was chewing on his deputy. And the deputy made the motion, well, roll something, made a motion with his hands, and like they knew the person was in the car. I stopped the video, slowed it down when I was reviewing it, and saw that it was a woman in the car. Who it was, I don't know. But they passed that woman through. And as soon as he finished talking with his deputy, he come over and told me I was under arrest. And I said, for what? He said, obstruction. So I don't know where I was obstructing. I wasn't told to leave that area. I was actually affirmed that I was okay to be there as far as I can tell from what he told me.
Right.
And that's where I'm at now, and the courts won't let it go. The state won't let it go, so...
And you have court is February?
Yeah, February the 11th is a pre-trial, and the 16th is the actual trial.
And what are your plans with that? What is your outlook on that situation?
I'm hoping the state will see the light and drop the case, because I had to go with a public defender because of my financial situation. And he's actually told me that the only case they would have is if they were detaining someone and I walked into that area and interfered. That's the only case law where there would be an obstruction charge. And I didn't do that. And he actually said that I didn't do that. So how the state is pursuing this, I don't know. It makes no sense to anyone I've talked to that's seen the video.
And it just... Yeah, and just for everyone who hasn't seen the video, I'll have it in the description below. But the entire video of this situation is on tape. You had it around your neck, correct?
That was my secondary camera.
Your backup camera.
Yeah, my backup camera.
And it's just ridiculous. I mean, why are they wasting the time to not only going through with the case, but just to sort of harass you that night? You weren't giving them any problems. You weren't shouting at them. You weren't obstructing in any way. I mean... Sounds like First Amendment filming in public space on the sidewalk. He said the medium was okay. What is their goal here, do you think? They just want you out of there?
I'm looking at the situation where they're trying to build case law is what I believe now. There's some other activists in the state that's a lot more active. And I know there's another one up north of us here that's got a similar case, but it was for protesting on the side on public highway, beside the road. And they've got him going through trial too. I think they're looking for case history. They can get in the courts, but they can go after some of the bigger guys that work in this situation, trying to deal with corrupt cops. So, and I got to say it's corruption, because as far as I'm concerned, my arrest was wanton and willful, vengeful act. It's the only way I could see it. Because the moment I caught them doing that at the checkpoint, that's when I was arrested. Come out and told I was obstructing. They tried to say that I was distracting the officers, and they weren't watching. They were kept looking around me. They were in fear for their safety. And my thing of that is, if the officer's trained to do this job, how can a person stand there with a camera be a distraction to them, unless they want it to be a distraction? What I saw there was a lot of guys having a good time, joking, talking. There was nothing regimented about what they were doing.
Right.
It was just out there, let's do this, have a good time, and go home.
Yeah.
So, make some extra money and go home. So.
In my personal experience, when I went through a checkpoint, I was asked to see my information. I was stopped. My freedom to travel from point A to point B was hindered, and I was not suspected of committing a crime. There was no probable cause. And if it's a DUI checkpoint, why did they not even ask me if I was drinking? That was interesting to me. You stopped and you explained why this was, okay to do, because I had questions for them, but they didn't even ask me if I had been drinking. Maybe he could just visibly tell, but there's got to be a better way to do this. What do you think is the solution, other than violating our rights and increasing this police state mentality? What's a better way?
I think you hit it on the head right there with the police state mentality. That's where they're going.
Yeah.
And I think people better start looking out and seeing what's happening outside of their busy schedules, because in my heart, that's where I believe it's all going to go. It's going to be a police state, and it's going to happen abruptly after just enough flares that people get enough upset about things and the skirmishes start. Then we'll have that police state is what they want. There's something you mentioned that I want to come back to. When I was arrested that night, I was on that sidewalk. They were in fear of the officer's safety. He said, you can't have me stand up behind him. So he puts me down, 50, 60 feet, 70 feet down the road. Not once was I asked if I could be patted down. Not once was I asked if I was carrying any weapons. But they were concerned with their safety. It's, as far as I see, it's all a game to keep pushing what you're looking at, everybody else is seeing, a police state where the cops do the bidding of the politicians and the unions they're a part of.
Do you think that these officers are inherently in the know about that? I mean, it seems like, for the most part, they're just doing their job. They just think, we're catching drunk drivers. We're doing the right thing. Are they all inherently evil and out to get us? Is that the deal? Because I don't think that's the case.
I don't think it is the case myself. I think that there are certain, I want to call them ringleaders, but I don't know if it's really ringleaders. It's just certain people have position to be pushed that way. And they're psychotic enough, which we're seeing that all the time now, that they'll go with the flow.
Right.
And the problem I have with not saying they're all bad is, if they're good, why aren't they stopping it?
Right. Why aren't they speaking up?
So I have to look at every officer's potential as a potential problem, because if he's there and this shit's going on, it's because he's letting it go on.
Right.
Any way you look at it.
Silence is complicit.
Silence, they tell us, guilty after the fact or prior, if you're involved with them and it happens, why didn't you stop it? Why don't you tell a cop? Well, you're guilty as they are. So it's the same situation.
It's almost like they need to look at it from a different perspective, I think, because they look at it as it's just the us versus them. They don't like the police. It's such an anti-police mentality, but good God, we're just looking out for our future, it seems like, and our rights here. We're not here to be, we don't have a negative agenda, I don't think, as a cop watcher, and it's really gotten a bad rap with, some of the recent things that are going on.
Cop watch and cop block both have gotten a bad rap because of people that want to just, I don't want to call them bootlickers, but their life is so much easier if they just stick to the status quo, and go to work, pay their bills. That's what their life is about.
My question to them would be, what's more important? Is it what's the moral right thing to do, or just your paycheck and to just keep your job? I mean, it seems like they're valuing the legality over the morality. They're enforcing it whether it's wrong or right. And if it's wrong, you shouldn't enforce it.
Morality,
in my opinion.
Morality is something this country has really lost since I was a kid. And it's people are growing up without it. They're growing up and I have what I want, I do what I want day now, which is great. That's what America's supposed to be about. And I'm not saying they have to give any of it away, but when you become oppressed, you'll be wanting to fight too. And that's where it's coming. And we're just trying to point out that it's heading there. Help what you can, be a part of what you can to stop this. Because there's no stopping it once it's happened. And there's a lot of political organizations that are very powerful in this country now that are working every day to take away your first, your second, your fourth. Every way they can, they're working on it. And it's a fact. It's not conspiracy theory. You can read about it every day, not in the mainstream newspaper. Go to the internet. Go to out-of-country sites. Go to French news. Go to European news agencies. They post a lot of stuff there that you get that you won't get in the U.S.
Right.
And a lot of it's about the U.S. So the internet's the easiest way to find out what's going on. I quit watching TV virtually altogether because you can watch news channels and you'll see scripts. And then there's actually people that shot video from station to station across the country, picked up off of satellites, where they're saying the same script over and over. You've seen those videos,
I've seen it.
And it's so laughable.
It is. It's like a joke. I mean, they really are. It seems like just robots reading from a piece of paper. I mean, they might as well just replace them with a robot at this point,
or put the words up for people to read themselves. I mean, that's basically what they're all doing. They're reading off of a teleprompter.
I think everyone should just turn it off 100%. We'd probably be a lot more informed. And less distracted.
Exactly. That's where you go to the internet for. You stay off the TV and go on the internet and travel the world and see what's really happening. Because when you do that, there's instances you hear about on the internet. Well, that don't seem quite right. Then you'll go see 3 or 4 different other stories about it, and you get the blend of information where you'll actually be able to deduce what's really going on.
Right. You got to compare different sources. I mean, it seems like in America we've got so many different sources of information, but we really don't.
There's 6 corporations on every news agency, radio, television station, media, 6 corporations.
So you've got to just don't believe it. Don't believe us. Don't believe anyone unless you can prove it with your own research. Really, I guess is the only way we can kind of stay informed in this day and age. But getting back to your story, what exactly do you have planned here in the near future, other than your case and trying to fight it and get it dismissed?
Well, I want to continue with doing what I can to get politicians under control. There's one guy in Tampa that works with a lot of people, a lot of stories. That's Mike Deason. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he does some investigation for Channel 10 Investigates. And Mike Deason's one of the guys that actually helped a cop watcher up in Tarpon Springs, the kid that got arrested for being out there videoing cops. He did the story and helped the kid get through that.
See, we need more people like that.
Exactly, and you're not going to find it in most. Mike Deason is an old-time reporter, way back. The newer people are just doing the fluff stories. Every morning you can turn on one of the channels here in Tampa, and you can see every internet fluff story, the puppy jumping around, the kittens playing, stuff like that. Do you get any real-world news out of them?
No, you sure don't. Well, is there anywhere that anyone can find out more information about you? Is there any last words you'd like to say?
Just I'm Wally Sullivan on Facebook, and my YouTube channel is Rubberband54. There's no space. It's Rubberband54, and you can see my videos and watch them, and just be there. If you can say something or send a message to the state attorney's office, I should have had their phone number. I don't think I do with me, but that would help. And get them to understand that this is crazy. You can't prosecute people for doing nothing wrong. And videoing is protected under the First Amendment right. Videoing public officials performing their duties is legal under your First Amendment right. So,
and it's for our own safety at this point with the police.
At this point, you've got to be videoing. I've had situations a couple of times where I didn't have a camera, and I just took the ticket and went on. When I've had the camera going, if I had my DVR going on my dash, there's no way I would have gotten one ticket I got.
Right.
Because the cop accused me of cutting him off trying to pull in a lane, and he almost hit me. But I wasn't even in his lane yet. I stopped when I seen him changing lanes into my lane, changing lanes in the intersection. but I had to pay that ticket because I knew I couldn't fight it.
You didn't have a camera.
Didn't have a camera.
Best witness is a camera
It
hanging
sure
out
is.
on your dash.
Everybody should have one on your dash or on your car ready to go, you know.
Yeah. Well, if you guys want to help out Wally, please share this video, like this video. On behalf of Florida Cop Watch, we are Change Orlando.